Good evening. It's just about after 10 p.m. on Sunday, August 16th, 2020. And yesterday was the 75th anniversary of VJ Day, which is the day that Japan officially surrendered uh, World War II. There actually was a ceremony they had on September 2nd, 1945. But the war was pretty much over as of yesterday, 75 years ago. So, uh, it was interesting. Even people who were 18, fresh out of boot camp, they more likely are no longer still alive. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who stormed the beaches of Normandy, uh, Pearl Harbor. I've known two men. One was at Pearl Harbor. Another one was at uh, the Normandy invasion. They're both passed away. They passed away several years ago, and there's only by the end of this decade, they probably will not be one single survivor left of World War II, and I think it's time a lot of Americans come to realize their own mortality. I think that's mainly the biggest problem I've often had with baby boomers and Generation Xers. They seem to act like they want to live forever, and unfortunately for baby boomers, that's kind of why we're in the situation we're in right now. Because baby boomers want to stay in power. They want to stay. They want to live forever. They want to stay in power, and they don't really seem to have an idea that times change and it's time to pass the torch to the younger generations. And unfortunately, Generation Xers, which I am one of, I'm almost 42. We kind of just allowed them to have free reign way too longer than they should. And I hear a lot of people complain to me, well, it's not, baby boomers are individual thinkers. Generation Xers are individual thinkers. That's bullshit, all right? Now, going back to, what I said earlier, uh, someone who was 18 serving in the military on this day in 1945 would have been pretty much in the early 70s when it came time to cast their vote for either George W. Bush or Al Gore. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who served in the World War II through natural causes, God forbid, heart uh, disease, cancer, suicide, alcoholism, whatever affected them in their later lives, were probably deceased as of November 2000. And a lot of Generation Xers, like myself, this was their second time they had voted in a presidential election. I voted for Bill Clinton in 1996, and I voted for Al Gore in 2000. A lot of y'all saying big surprise. He's just a stupid, long-haired liberal. Of course, he's going to vote for them socialist, blah blah blah, communists. And that's another thing. Yeah, I kind of grew up at the tail end of the Cold War. And I believed a lot of this crazy propaganda that Reagan and all these other people told us about how one day we're this close to being taken over by the Soviet Union. And what's so funny is if that we were that close by the late 80s, why didn't it happen? And we came to learn that a lot of it was a bunch of bullshit. That the Soviet Union was pretty much running on empty for about 10 years before they collapsed. And there was a joke when Reagan got in office. They said, "Well, how come you ain't meeting the general secretary of the Communist Party?" And they kept saying, "Well, they kept dying off." And yes, they did. I mean, before Mikhail Gorbachev, between Brezhnev and Gorbachev, there was like 3 or 4 general secretaries of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, and So and Reagan was a pretty old guy too. He was like 69, 70. So the idea of having these older people in office, I think, should have been a warning sign in the 1980s that we kind of need to do things a little differently. And there's something really funny that Ted Kennedy once said that part of the reason he ran for U.S. Senator of Massachusetts was that he said that they told him they wanted some young blood, and he had been wanting to retire, especially after, the big scandals of Chappaquiddick and the 1980s, in which he was having some personal problems, and they kept saying, no, they need more veterans in the Congress, and that's kind of what I'm getting at here is that I think for the last 20 years, Generation Xers and baby boomers have been pretty much choosing all of our elected officials. So I don't know where this whole idea of personal responsibility comes around, because we have pretty much been making some shitty choices. And I think we had a very good chance in 2000 to really step up and say, no, this isn't right. We're almost certain Al Gore got more votes. He did get more of the popular votes, and I'm pretty sure he got more of the votes in Florida. It's just that his brother was the damn governor, and his campaign manager was the fucking Secretary of State down there. So she has complete control of the election ballots. And again, this should have been time for us to stand up and say, no more electoral college. All right, well, give Bush his one term, but he's gone in 2004, and I think Bush knew that. Cheney obviously knew that. And that's why they started that damn war in Iraq. So, because people are so stupid, they believe outdated ideology that if there's a war going on, that you cannot vote out a sitting president, which is wholly bullshit. So, and I want to go back to the fact that, the Cold War is going on, and Generation Xers, they kind of came up in the 90s, but I think a lot of them really, despite what the general consensus was, they are very conservative. I know they don't want to say it, because they want to say, well, we're libertarians, which I think libertarians are really just Republicans who don't want to be called Republicans now. And I know a lot of people say, well, I'm conservative libertarian, but they seem to vote caucus with the Republican Party. So, I mean, dude, shit or get off the pot. You're either a libertarian or you're a Republican. So what is it? And, that when you've been making the choices for the last 20 years, I don't want you coming after me with this crap about personal responsibility and how you're not don't make a broad generalization, because what I've seen from a lot of people, especially a lot of people who were raised the same era I have, y'all seem to keep buying the whole Reagan myth, and y'all keep going on about how dangerous communism is, how dangerous socialism is. And I think that if it was going to happen here in America, it would have happened in the 1950s or 1960s. I mean, it kind of tends to happen more when it's more popular. But now, what's interesting about this presidential election, you'll have people voting who were not alive when September 11th happened. And there's a good bet their parents weren't even together on September 11th, 2001. So there's that. And, you hear all this talk about millennials, and there's this big misconception about millennials. This obviously goes to show you how boomers and some Generation Xers have really no concept of time. Because a lot of millennials were born in the late 80s, early 90s, and trying to discuss to them the dangers of socialism or communism, yeah, you might as well just try to explain to them the dangers of the Bull Moose Party. I mean, it's not going over. They're not going to understand it. I mean, you're talking about something that was outdated when they were still in diapers. And that just goes to show you, I think that over the next 10 years, you're going to start hearing less and less and less more about, oh, well, communism, socialism, we're going to fall into a socialism, communism country. And what's ironic is a lot of people don't want capitalism in its current state because there's so much of a gap right now between wages and the middle class is almost gone. Thank you, Reagan. When I started working a summer job back in 1995, I was paid $5 an hour. And now, 25 years later, minimum wage is only like $7.25. So, you can't keep. This isn't a revival, all right? This isn't a Monty Python sketch. They don't want to come hearing the Dead Parrot sketch. They don't want to hear the Mystery of the Silly Walk. They want to hear the new stuff, all right? It's totally against. I know it's totally against what we've done in our pop culture, but this is actually, people are coming to this political arena and they want to hear new things. They want to hear fresh things. And all y'all want to do is keep bringing up communism, socialism, blah, 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 when we are pretty much almost living in a fascist dictatorship that is very remnant of the Soviet Union bloc, with so much inequality going on right now. So I don't understand how it's going to get any worse or different if Biden and Harris get elected. And y'all been saying this ever since Barack Obama was elected in 2008, and it didn't happen. And you don't have several issues with Obama's administration. I understand that he had to do what he had to do to compromise with the Republican Party, but y'all just gonna have to get over it. And I'm sorry, you Generation Xers really dropped the ball. Boomers, y'all did what y'all could do. I understand it. You're 60, 70 years old. You're tired of this shit. You're tired of fighting. You want some relaxation. Reagan screwed up with a mandatory retirement. Your Social Security is pretty much almost fucked. And you just want a couple of years to relax. And I don't fault you for that, but there are still people out there fighting for it who are in their 60s and 70s. As for you Generation Xers, fuck y'all. Because y'all didn't do shit. I didn't do shit. I tried to do what I could do, and it wasn't good enough. I am ashamed of myself for what I didn't do. I didn't fight hard enough in 2000. And after 9/11, you know what they told us? They said, if you don't like America, you're a communist. If you don't like America, you're a terrorist. You know what? And what happened in Iraq was a bunch of bullshit. You go back and you watch all that press conference from like 2003 on to the end of the Bush administration. They kept changing the rationale for invading Iraq. Vietnam, LBJ and Nixon were on the same page. They kept saying, communism, 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 communism. And we were like, oh shit, yeah, of course. Send those boys off to the jungle and have them get killed. Because, Lord forbid, communists are going to spread over Southeast Asia. Well, guess what? It happened. And that was it. That was the end of, that was kind of like, I think the fall of Saigon was pretty much the end of the communist fight. And America had its own problems in the 70s, so they didn't have time to worry about this crap until Reagan came in. And he's like, well, communism. Oh, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, communism. But, yeah, you Generation Xers got the ball. I'm sorry, y'all did. We did. And now it's up to people who are in the 30s and 20s and 18 and older to come in and try to save us, because we're starting to become our parents. And what's even worse is we allow these boomers to stay in office too long. You know, it's so funny that the General Secretary of the Communist Soviet Union kept dying off when there was a town not far from about 20 miles. Their mayors kept dying off because the mayors were like in their 70s, for God's sakes. Wagner City Council, which I used to cover, had 2 city council members die within like 2 months. One of them was like on his deathbed when he was elected. The other one had terminal illness. And yet they still got elected. Because we're in this mindset that anyone under the age of 50 cannot serve an elective office. Boomers did this to us, man. And every time somebody in their 20s wants to go up and run for an election, we want to talk about how foolish they are. Look at what we did with the AOC. Yeah, she's a bartender. She's 20-something. She does not belong in Congress. And they were saying the exact same thing about Joe Scarborough 25 years ago, when he was in Congress in Florida. They said, oh, he's too young. He looks like he should be on the cast of Friends. And we need to stop this. We need to stop saying they're too young for something. They're not too young to vote. Even though they want to change that. They're definitely not too young to fucking serve in the military. Yeah, 18. You're old enough to get killed in combat. You're not old enough to vote or serve in political office. And every time it happens, it's done as a joke. Oh, look at him, 19, 20-year-old kid running for mayor. Well, if they can do a better job than y'all can, then y'all need to shut the fuck up. Because that's what we need. We need term limits and we need age limits. There, I said it. We don't ever need to let this happen again. For 20 years, we've had the political voting power, and all we did was elect the same old idiots over and over. And we've let 2 presidential elections within 20 years be decided by an outdated 19th century political weapon, the Electoral College. This is twice within 20 years. What do you think is going to happen if this happens again? I guarantee you one thing. A lot of millennials, a lot of Generation Zoomers, or whatever you want to call them, they're probably not going to stand for it. Because they ain't got nothing. You know, Generation Xers, your 40s and your 50s now, you're probably settled in to what you think is going to be the rest of your life. They don't have much of a life starting out. And we have not really provided for them any reason for them to be happy. Especially since this is probably the second recession they're going through in about 10 years. They grew up in an era in which they cannot go to school without fear of being shot. And, it's time we just need to do something. You Generation Xers, especially, you want to talk about individual responsibilities. Yeah, y'all need to quit acting like babies when someone asks you to wear a mask when you're out in public. And you definitely need to stop with this communist socialist crap, because we're all sick and tired of hearing about it. I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. Because it's not going to happen. What is going to happen is people are going to get tired of the most wealthiest people in the country making all the rules. More importantly, the wealthiest, oldest people in the country making all the rules. Well, they can't do anything. They can't get jobs. They can't buy houses. They can't buy cars. So, knock it off. It's a new century. Not a new century, it's a new decade, for God's sakes. And it's a new century, for God's sakes. 21st century. Communism, socialism is a 20th century term. And conservatism was a total thing created in opposition to socialism, communism. So, stop it. Please, we can do a lot better. We need to start doing a lot better. Thank you.